All right, today we're going to dive into one of the most powerful and, let's be honest, challenging stories ever told, the trial of Job. It's this really profound look at suffering, faith, and what it really means to hold on to who you are when you've lost absolutely everything else.
You see, at the heart of it all is this one universal, agonizing question. It's a question that pretty much everyone has asked at some point in their lives, and it echoes through every single generation.
And to explore this, we're turning to a very old story that just refuses to give us any easy answers. Instead, what it offers is this raw, challenging perspective on how to get through tragedy when there are no simple explanations in sight.
Okay, so let's set the stage. Who is this guy Job? Well, before his whole world fell apart, his life was pretty much the definition of success. He's described as a man of perfect integrity who, he had it all.
And to really paint a picture of his immense wealth, the story tells us he owned 7,000 sheep.
And get this, 3,000 camels, which back then basically made him the equivalent of a modern-day billionaire.
And on top of all that material wealth, he had a huge, loving family. 10 children. By all accounts, his life was absolutely perfect. And then, just like that, it all comes crashing down. The terrifying speed of his downfall is what's so shocking. It all happens in a single afternoon. 4 messengers arrive, one right after the other, each one bringing worse news than the last, culminating in the most devastating blow imaginable. All 10 of his children gone, all at once.
But believe it or not, Job's suffering was far from over. After losing everything he owned and everyone he loved, the next phase of his trial was about intense physical pain in this profound social isolation, where any comfort he got, well, it wasn't really comfort at all.
So first, he's struck with this agonizing skin disease, which turns him into a total social outcast. He's forced to go sit in the town's ash heap, and he's mocked by everyone. Even his wife, who's just shattered by grief herself, tells him he should just curse God and die. And then his 3 friends arrive, supposedly to offer support.
Now, to understand what happens next, we have to talk about this really powerful psychological idea. Job's friends, and honestly a lot of us, operate on something called the just world hypothesis. It's this little cognitive bias that makes us want to believe the world is fair. It's comforting, right? It gives us this sense of order in a really chaotic universe.
And because they're stuck in this mindset, their idea of comfort very quickly turns into a theological interrogation. They just can't wrap their heads around the idea that a good person is suffering this horribly. So their conclusion? Well, Job must not actually be a good person. He must have some secret sin, and he just needs to confess. They end up blaming the victim.
This part of the story shows us the huge difference between 2 kinds of support. For the first 7 days, his friends actually did exactly what he needed. They just sat with him, in silence. That's witnessing. But the second they opened their mouths to try and explain his pain away, they started fixing. And they became, in Job's own words, miserable comforters.
So, you might be thinking, what can this ancient story really teach us in the 21st century? Well, it turns out the themes are incredibly relevant to the pressures we all face today.
I think we can pull out 4 really powerful lessons here. First, how to break free from that just world trap. Second, the difference between really witnessing someone's pain and just trying to fix it. Third, the incredible importance of maintaining your integrity under pressure. And finally, the value of a little intellectual humility.
First up, the story of Job just shatters the idea that suffering is always a direct result of our actions. Life is messy, it's chaotic, it's non-linear. And really internalizing that helps us fight that impulse to blame victims, and it allows us to be way more compassionate when people we know are in crisis.
Second, in our modern world of, toxic positivity, where we're always trying to find a silver lining or offer some quick fix advice, Job's friends are a huge cautionary tale. Sometimes the most powerful, the most healing thing you can offer someone in pain is just your silent, non-judgmental presence. Just being there really is enough. And the third lesson is all about the power of integrity. Despite immense pressure from his closest friends to just confess to sins he knew he didn't commit, Job refused. He held on to his truth. And that teaches us that maintaining your character, especially when it's under attack, is a really profound form of spiritual survival.
Okay, so now we get to the climax. After all the debates, all the accusations, and all of Job's demands for an explanation from the universe,
A voice finally speaks out of a whirlwind, but it doesn't give Job the answer he was looking for. See, instead of a neat little explanation, Job gets a massive lesson in perspective. He's asked this incredibly humbling question, reminding him of just how vast and complex the universe is, and that maybe it doesn't revolve around him. The point isn't to provide an answer, but to suggest that some questions are just beyond our human understanding. And this is so important. A lot of people see the end of the story, where Job gets all his stuff back, as the happy ending. But the real victory, that happened way earlier. It happened when Job was at his absolute lowest, sitting in the ashes, and he refused to curse his reality or compromise who he was. And that leaves us with the story's ultimate challenge. We can't control the whirlwinds of life. The sudden losses, the unfair crises, they're going to happen. But we can control our response. The story of Job suggests that in our darkest moments, the most profound power we have isn't in finding the right answers, but in choosing who we are going to be in the face of those unanswerable questions.